Hello everyone, this is Maud and welcome to your Yin and Energy class. Today we're going to explore the yin side of energy. And so we're going to start here seated, cross at the shins. It just feels good to be seated on top of something so you feel a nice neutral position on your spine. So as you can see, I have all the props here with me. Grab a blanket, grab a pillow or any of your cushion furniture so you can sit on top of that. Perhaps crossing at the shins. Make sure that you're stacking your ears above the shoulders. The upper body feels relaxed. Your hands are on your thighs or your legs. Be soft in the breath. Notice the reactions in your body as you change your breath and you set yourself up right here physically. Eyes closed, or the gaze may be down and soft. Focus on the breath. Ask questions like, what happens in my body once I breathe in? What happens in my body once I breathe out? What reactions are there that are noticeable every time I take this full breath? In the yin practice, as you know, it's slower, and the muscles and the skin are called superficial tissues. They are surface tissues, and it's easy to see them, right? It's easy to flex them, contract them, you see what's happening. While that is great, and we do need that sort of yang type of engagement in our bodies, we also need the opposite exact energy, which is yin, which is we're going to get into the deeper, darker parts of our bodies, the connective tissues, our joints, our ligaments, our tendons. And these are the things that are not seen. The more feminine, mysterious parts of our bodies. And so with yin, we don't necessarily do muscle contraction. It's not a super high energy experience, but we are going to add good stress into those joints, into those connective tissues. And this good stress could be compression. It could be some shearing, some gliding, some folding. And so there is still some activity in a yin practice. Right before we get to our next poses, just remind yourself why you came here, why you chose this practice. And perhaps opening the eyes, planting the hands behind you, releasing the legs. Maybe some knee bounces. We're going to explore the yin side of energy, like I said. And these postures that we're going to do today, I'm going to talk you through the hows and the whys we access that type of energy and what truly happens in the in-betweens. So we're going to get into this pose called shoelace, which is basically also what we call as Gomukhasana legs. We're going to start here with our left leg underneath, and the right leg is going to be on top. And if you already know that your body still feels tight, that the body's not quite ready to get into this expression that we think we should be in, Feel free to grab one of your blocks or one of your cushions and make sure that you put them between your limbs. If you feel you're tilting too much on the left side, then make sure that you put something underneath that left bum, that way you can kind of balance. And if this right leg feels a little bit lifted, just pad it. If your bottom leg is not ready, then lengthen it and we'll just do half shoelace and it's all good. Otherwise, get into your shoelace for today, whatever shape that may be. Hands can just be on the lap. Feel free and liberated in your chest. Allow the stress to happen and unravel in the deeper, darker tissues like I had told you. The first part of it is just to get there, right? The second part here would be to be still. And it doesn't mean that you're frozen. Once you can find this stillness, the third part is being good with time. We're going to be here a little bit longer. You can stay here upright, or some of you may want to take a little bit of lean forward. And you know, as you lean forward, there may be some natural external rotation that happens in the hips. And if you have no issues with that, then you can definitely make that happen. You can also grab one of your props and then place your hands underneath your chin and just stay right here. Whatever feels good to you. Speaking of energy, there are two ways to sort of facilitate or manage that. The first part being that you open the source of energy. You open the tap, as Bernie Clark would say, and you let the energy flow. So imagine opening a faucet and the water's flowing, and that's your energy. And the second part would be removing the blockages in this energy. So if in your plumbing, in your pipe, you feel that there is a clog or a blockage, you would want to remove that so that the energy can flow through. And this is what we're doing. Blockages can reside in joints. Blockages can reside in our inner bodies. And by staying in these poses, we are allowing ourselves to unravel, to deal with the good stress, and to remove those blockages so that the energy can flow through the meridians or the channels or the nadis in our bodies so that we can access these meridians and it can get straight to the organs that they're addressing or that they are sort of facilitating some healness and some betterment or some wellness towards. Like for example, the groin area would be that access gate towards the liver and the kidneys. And so we want to remove those types of blockages. And take the last breath right here. And then slowly unravel, remove all the props out of the way. This right leg is going to swing back. I'm going to face this direction. I'm going to stay seated here on my blanket. We're going to get into a swan or pigeon pose, but I want you guys to lean towards your left hand yet and just sort of rest here on the left side of your pelvis as a break. Allow the echo of the previous pose, that shoelace pose, to happen right now. Just see what kind of reaction you have to that before you get into that swan pose or pigeon. So please listen to your knees. If you already have knee issues, just know that you can always take this foot a little closer to your perineum or your groin area. Otherwise, if you don't have any knee issues, you can always sort of open them up. And then be slow on the back leg as well. So you don't just swing it back. Try to see if you can let it crawl and slide to a place where it feels good to just kind of be behind the body. And the first part here is we're going to place our hands in front of us. And if you know this is feeling really good to your pelvis and your pelvis feels even, then you just hang right here for a moment. This is a fairly young posture because we're using our upper back muscles to keep us upright, which means we're not going to spend a whole lot of time here. We are targeting the outside of the front hip and the front of the back hip of the leg in the back. Once you've been here a while and you think you can sort of find this fold, you can always crawl your way there. Try not to drop down, that way you're not dumping into that front knee. You can sort of just wiggle left and right here and see if this feels good to you. Send the hips left and right. And then this may be your second edge, or this may even be your first edge. And you stop right here and you assess. It's important in these poses to feel sensation and to be in a place where your body is still giving you feedback. So if you feel like you've maxed out on the stretch, you've maxed out on the expression, and the body's no longer telling you where to stop, then pull out of the pose, take a breath or two, and then come right back to it. According to the Taoist belief, there are 4 ways to open that tap, that faucet I was talking about. And the first part is supposedly acupuncture, where you're putting needles right on the body. The second is acupressure, where you're putting stress on certain parts of the body. And then supposedly these stress areas can access the organs that I had mentioned through those meridians. And the third one is supposedly by noticing sensation and focusing on it. So for example, if you were to focus on your big toe and you just direct all your focus on it and your attention to it, you can send energy there and eventually it will warm up because that's where you're focusing on. That's a part of the body that you're thinking about and that you're attending to. And supposedly that facilitates energy. And then the fourth part is breath, which we of course know. Breath can facilitate energy. It can down-regulate. It can up-regulate. So take a nice big breath right here. Inhale. And as you exhale, perhaps you can plant your hands down. And since we're here in Swan, let's take a moment to do a very short screaming swan. So bend the right leg until you can reach towards it. And just have a little bit of tugging towards you, opening up that shoulder. You don't have to go deep. Just feel a little bit of opening happening more in the quad area, the quad surface. Just stay right here for one breath. And then exhale, slowly release. And then we're gonna get to the other side. So I want you guys to either do windshield wipers or just releasing the legs, doing some very nice knee bounces. Windshield wipers would be good because they internally rotate the hips, and we just did a big external rotation, especially on that left side. So feel free to just choose your own adventure and see what pose, what movements would send you to a neutral space so you can get to the other side. Now we get to do shoelace on the right side this time. So right leg is going to be underneath, and then the left leg is going to be on top. Make any necessary adjustments with your prop. So just like our previous shoelace, if this left leg, the leg that's on top, is too high, then definitely grab your blocks, grab your blanket, grab your props, and pat it. If this bottom leg is crabby, then you can always just lengthen it out to do half shoelace, and that's still okay. That's still mission accomplished. Or just find your shape of shoelace. Stay right here. Then hands can just be on the thighs. Like I said, we can start here a little bit more upright. Notice the sensations. Notice how different this feels compared to the other side. When you wing your shins out, don't be too occupied with symmetry because we are not symmetric creatures, right? So just be fine with where it's at, be comfortable. And then with the breath, with each exhale, feel this surrendering, yielding experience. Like we did before, you always have the option to lean a little bit more forward, just noticing that it does increase the rotation that's happening in the hips the more you lean forward. So we're just going to stay right here. If your mind tends to wander, just tell yourself, let the breath win, let the yoga win. If there's anything in front of you that's distracting you, something else that's calling your attention, that's needing your attention, and you don't really have to tend to it, just tell yourself, you know what, I'm just going to do this now and be here. Otherwise, there's always the pause button and you can always come back. Couple more breaths here. Inhale here. And then exhale, slowly release. Without a big swing, help this top leg, this left leg, swing it to the back. And I'm going to face this way this time because we're going to have the right leg bent in front of us. Get that right hand outside the right knee and just lean towards the right side and feel that rebound that just happened from the previous shoelace pose. Or as Bernie Clark calls it, the echo from the previous pose. Notice the spots in the body that just want to kind of feel release and relief from that compression. And then we're going to get into our swans. We're going to be upright here in our swan or pigeon first. So make sure that your pelvis is nice and even. Notice what's happening in the knees. So if this is too much knee compression, if there's just not a lot of room for your knee to breathe here, feel free to just drag that foot closer to the body, and you can even sit on top of that heel, and that's fine. Or if there are no issues, you can always also just open up that knee and open up that leg. I'm kind of a halfway type of person. And in the back leg, slowly slide it so that it's right behind that left hip. Place your hands in front of you. Kind of an upright swan right here. Like I said, it's a little bit of a yang practice, a yang experience, because we are engaging the muscles in the upper body a little bit. Snuggle back. You can crawl your hands forward like we did before. Take the time here. We really want to get into these poses as slowly, as gently, but also as aware as we possibly can be, so that we're not just getting into the shape, we're getting into the experience, and these are decisions that we make. And then slowly make your way down into your elbows perhaps, or your forearms. And then this is when we start to sway left and right. Find a place where you're feeling something. Then you can come into a still place. Like I said, it's getting to the pose is the first part. Finding stillness is the second. And the third part is time. Being okay with staying here for a little bit longer than maybe what you usually do. You've just opened the tap. You've just let the energy flow. And now with every second and every minute we spend here, then we are sort of removing the blockages from that tap. And the energy can flow through freely. However your swan may be. Maybe you've let your head down. Maybe you're putting something underneath your chest, whatever is comfortable. Stay right there for a few moments. Take a deep inhale here. And as you exhale, slide the hands underneath your shoulders. We'll get into the screaming swan. I got it right this time. For just a short minute, bending that left leg, and perhaps the left hand, you can find your foot. Just know a little bit of glute engagement helps open up that hip. Some people like to bring their foot a little bit closer, turning the hands in, but you don't have to be fancy. Whatever feels good to you, just do it. As long as you're still feeling the sensation, right? Outside the right hip and the top of that back left thigh. And slowly release. And we're going to sort of get to the next pose, but before that, make a good decision on what type of release you want. You can always lengthen the legs forward, have those knee bounces. You can revisit those windshield wipers that I showed you guys before. You can do a down dog, a very brief down dog. And then wherever you are, just do about 2 or 3 full breaths. Already feeling the sort of the echo of that swan experience. And then the rebound as well. Remove the blanket out of the way. Keep it within your arm's reach in case you need it. You can just place it right here. And we're going to get into happy baby. Lay on your back. And just press the knees towards the chest. And still feeling the echo, still feeling the rebound from that previous practice. And then lift your feet up. And for now, maybe your happy baby can just be hands behind the knees. Elbows drop towards the mat. Perhaps some of you can hug it in, interlacing the fingers, drawing your lower back down to find that length in the spine as we keep lifting our legs up. Like I said, it's always about the first stop and then that second stop. So you don't have to max out right away. You don't have to get to your farthest, deepest experience. You sort of make your way there and ease into it.
And then maybe perhaps you reach towards your hands and get into that happy baby shape. And notice which parts of the body are reluctant or resistant to open. And let's get to the third part of how we can facilitate energy according to the Taoist belief. That thing about focusing your attention towards a sensation. And so draw your attention to that area, add some loving warmth into it, and perhaps you will start to unravel and open up. Stay here for a few more breaths. Last inhale. And exhale. And send your feet towards each other for now. Interlacing your fingers outside the edge of your feet, coming into sort of Supta Baddha Konasana right here. But this would be sort of short-lived. Have your arms long as your fingers are interlaced outside the edges, and just open your knees out to prepare ourselves for our next pose. And then slowly unravel. We can get into butterfly pose right now with the soles of the feet, or like I said, Baddha Konasana. Always remember that you can place pads or cushion underneath your knees or your hips or your thighs. If it doesn't feel like it's ready to be there just yet, you can place your hands on top of the groin area or your belly. Draw the attention towards that space. It just feels like it needs a little bit of convincing to open up. If this is too much, then you just slide the feet farther away from you. If it's too easy or you're just hanging out, there's no longer any feedback, then feel free to get the feet a little closer to you, whatever that may look like. Keep the breath going. You can use this time to think about more concepts of energy. Supposedly there are also three. The first energy being the transportation energy. It's energy that makes one thing flow from one place to another. And then the second one is transformation energy. It is energy that changes things, brings a shift, a conversion, or a change. And the third energy is a little bit more subtle, and it's the energy of communication. It's the energy where a message gets sent from one place to another. Communication, and then it goes to that same place, right? Take one more breath. And as you exhale, place your hands outside the hips or the legs. And like closing a book, bring your knees together. Perhaps bring your knees to the chest. Swing left and right. And then plant your feet down on the edges of your mat. Revisit those windshield wipers, really relishing in this internal rotation that's happening in the hip. Because we've done a lot of hip opening stuff, so we need to counter that. We need to find that balance. Pause right here. the next time your knees fall to the left. You won't spend a lot of time here. Let's switch sides here. So let's bring the left knee in and the right knee out. If you like to lift your arms up, you can do that as well. A bit of chest opening. And then slowly back to center. We will do a twist right now. Cross your right knee on top of the left, bringing your left foot towards the midline. And if it's okay if you can get that right foot behind the calf, that's totally fine. That's not really the goal. And then slowly bring the legs to the right. Bring the legs to the left. To the right again. And then the left. The next time you're on the right side, stay right there. For about 6 breaths, we'll recognize and notice how this side feels. These edges that we feel, they may be physical at first, right? This first pit stop, this first place we want to be. But these edges could be emotional edges. They could also be mental edges, where we are just going through something so profound or hard or challenging that our bodies are physically responding and it can't get farther or deeper. And we just notice that and not judge that. Inhale back to center. Next time, send the knees towards the left. We'll marinate here for a while and then see how this twist feels on this side with the right knee on top of the left. These stresses that we are making, they're actually sort of communication sensation on their own. And this communication that we're feeling is basically the body's message to us. When you do this, this is how I feel. That's the communication energy. Last breath right here. And then exhale. Come back to center. And release that right leg. Let us exaggerate that internal rotation that I talked about. So feet apart, knees in. If you have any issues with your hips, if you got arthritis or any serious issues and this is just not good for you, you can always just get the knees to be hip width apart. Otherwise, keep probably the arms open overhead because this feels good, right? Again, we're getting into the deeper, darker tissues and we're not stimulating or engaging the muscles too much or at all. Keep breathing. And then slowly release. Separate the knees out. Step the right foot in towards the midline. Cross the left leg over the right. And again, sway it left and right. Noticing the sensations as you switch directions. Take your time here. The next time your knees are on to the left, just drop them there. Spending about 6 breaths here, noticing what's happening. Notice how this feels and where you're feeling it. Notice the stresses happening in the pose. And also any energetic qualities that are happening while you're in the pose. Maybe you do feel rejuvenated in certain areas depending on the shape that you're in. Perhaps you feel more restored. Perhaps you feel more rejuvenated, resuscitated. Take one more breath. And then slowly release. Get to the other side. Notice how this feels. And again, make any adjustments that you need. You can always pad the legs with your thickest furniture, your thickest props. And then slowly release. And then unravel the fold, or the twist rather. Send your knees towards the chest. You can introduce some movements here, perhaps some circles with your knees. And then send your knees towards each other, rock left and right. And then slowly stop in the middle. Send your nose and your head towards the space between the thighs and just have a little bit of a hug here. Notice the change and the shift in the energy as you've lifted your head up. There's for sure transportation, and then transformation, and also communication. Inhale, and then exhale, slowly release. Find a nice Shavasana shape. We're going to end class seated, so for this Shavasana, it's basically just to release yourself of any restrictions and just sort of stay right here in the middle of your mat. Make sure you're in the middle of your mat. And get your body in this very neutral space, this very neutral experience. And hopefully nothing's touching your feet or your hands, so push any props aside so you can just be in your own space. Perhaps you want to lift your hands up too and your arms up. What things are you noticing here in this Shavasana shape? The rising and falling of the belly as you breathe in and out. Wiggle your toes. Notice the effects of the breath. Notice the effects of the breath towards the movement. Wiggle your hands and your fingers. And then slowly bend your legs. Just take some small sways with your knees, left and right. The next time your knees are on the right side, you roll on your right side, but you stay right there just for a moment or two, resting your head underneath your right arm. Your chest feels heavy, your eyes feel heavy. And then you gently press yourselves up with that left hand. Having the option to sit on top of something, to be kind to the lower back. You can cross at the shins. Place your hands on top of your lap for now, relaxing the shoulders. And even right here as you're seated, do a body scan. Space between the eyebrows, relax it. Jawline, unhinge it. Perhaps even sort of chewing an imaginary chewing gum just to loosen up the jaw. And then when you're done doing that, just relax the shoulders. Heavy on the eyelids, cast your vision down or close the eyes. What is the energy level that you have right here? And also remembering that the transportation, transformation, and communication types of energy are happening within us, in all living organisms, even on a cellular level. And then join your palms together at heart center, thumbs touching your chest. Perhaps taking a nice small bow towards your hands, just to honor your time and your presence here. Also, as you bow your head towards your hands, perhaps for the rest of the day or perhaps for the rest of the night, remembering those things, those objects, or those people who cultivate positive energy for you, towards you, and with you. And sort of staying with that. With a hint of a smile, take a deeper bow down to your inner guru, your inner teacher. Thank you so much for joining me in this Yin Side of Energy class. I really appreciate you guys sharing your practice, and I hope it really did resonate with your mind, body, and soul. From my heart to yours, and from my house to yours, the light in me honors the light in you, which also means namaste. Thank you so much. I hope to see you next time. Bye and take care for now.